I was thinking about Lamar Jackson the other day and how we all should have seen his success coming. He was one of the most electric athletes in college football history and a Heisman winner, getting selected by a Super Bowl winning head coach on a historically successful franchise. But because he wasn't this traditional style quarterback, he was overlooked. But why is being a pro style quarterback good? Immobile quarterbacks early in their careers have to rely on outsmarting NFL defenses the moment they step onto the field, which is it's really hard to do right away. And because this is considered the more valuable trait, they're often selected higher and selected by worse teams in the draft. Let's compare Lamar to another 2018 quarterback, Sam Darnold. Darnold is a traditional pocket passer playing on a team with a bad head coach and bad O-line, and when things don't go right, which happens pretty often on a team like the Jets, there's not much he can do except eat a bad play. Much different than Lamar, the electrifying runner with the Super Bowl winning head coach and great O-line. Not only does Lamar have the better support system, he has the ability to make things happen when those things fail him. And predictably, he performed much better in his first 16 starts, as mobile quarterbacks so often do. I mean, look at the best young quarterbacks in the game today. Lamar, Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson are the main three, I would say. Dak Prescott was great this last year, and you could maybe throw Wentz and Kyler Murray in there, even though their numbers weren't spectacular last year. All those guys were good for at least 400 rushing yards in a season in college. I was also thinking about how Kyler Murray getting Cliff Kingsbury's exciting modern offense and how Rosen got stuck with Vance Joseph. And I was thinking about how much it helps Mahomes to play with Andy Reid and how Paxton Lynch got John Fox. All that matters. So to predict this year's quarterback class, I made a formula. And it takes rushing and team situation along with passing into account. The stats I used was their best college rushing seasons by total yards, Football Outsiders Q-based metric, which takes only passing into account, and the previous year's expected wins of the team that drafted them. The geometric mean of those three stats equals what I'm going to call the Comprehensive Prospect Grade, or CPG. Over the last 5 years, the CPG grade has done a good job correlating with early career adjusted yards per attempt. Mahomes and Jackson both won MVP in their first full year as a starter. They ranked 4th and 1st in CPG over the last 5 years. Baker Mayfield set the rookie touchdown record and is 6th. Mariota, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Wentz, and Kyler Murray are the other guys in the top 10 over the past 5 years, and that pretty much covers every single young quarterback who is actually good. First round picks like Josh Allen, Jared Goff, Rosen, Paxton Lynch, and Dwayne Haskins, they all ranked near the bottom in CPG, and they all had rookie years ranging from very bad to disastrous. Over the last decade, 4 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the stat made the playoffs within their first 16 games. The only one who didn't is Jalen Hurts, who hasn't played a snap yet, so hasn't had the chance. But I think that this is a good indicator that he could end up being the best quarterback from this draft class, especially early in his career. Why is Hurts rated so high? First of all, he rushed for over 1,200 yards last year at Oklahoma. I've already talked about how useful mobility is for young quarterbacks, and Hurts has plenty of it. Second of all, he's a better passer than a lot of people give him credit for. His accuracy last year was 3rd best among the top prospects of this class. He's a great runner, a good passer, and in a great situation on an Eagles team that's made the playoffs each of the past 3 years, and won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback not too long ago. If Wentz gets hurt, as he so often does, or potentially Wentz gets sick, don't be surprised if Hurts steps in and performs at a very high level. As for the rest of the 2020 class, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow graded out decently. Here's an explanation as to why the formula may not like him as much as it does Hurts, even though Burrow was so much better than just about everyone in college. Burrow took a lot of sacks in college, and he's going to have to play behind a shaky Bengals O-line and what looks like a pretty questionable receiving corps. No quarterback got rid of the football faster than Andy Dalton did in 2019, and they were still 20th in sack rate. Burrow held the ball for a long time in college and won't be able to do that again. Until the Bengals are a better team, it will take a heroic effort from Burrow to look that good. And we know that he is capable of heroic efforts, but I think it is fair to question why it took him so long to look that good and how much was due to the fact that everyone around him was incredible. I think Burrow will be fine in the long run, and in a vacuum I would take him over Hurts, but I could see his career getting off to a rocky start in Cincinnati. And it's important to note that this stat is more about early success than overall career success. Right below Burrow in grade is Justin Herbert. Herbert is decently but not especially mobile, and decently but not especially accurate. But he will get to play on a decent Chargers team that went 12-4 just 2 years ago, and is pretty stacked with weapons. Keenan Allen especially will be beneficial to a young quarterback with his ability to get open on underneath routes. And Mike Williams is no slouch himself. And the defense in LA looks formidable, and all those factors could be enough to lift Herbert into looking better than he actually is right now. This formula is actually higher on Herbert than I personally am. Herbert's one of those guys like Trubisky and Josh Allen and Daniel Jones the last 3 years, where I'm just not sure his appeal over someone like Hurts. He isn't close to where Hurts is as a rusher, and he wasn't even as accurate as Hurts was. So why is he going before Jalen Hurts in the draft? Oregon didn't even trust him to throw down the field very much. And even when they did, it didn't go that well. So I'm not really sure that Herbert's given me any reason to expect him to be better in a harder league. And I think that he'll look pretty bad this year unless he is absolutely carried by Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And Tua coming up next. Tua is much the same way. I think Tua is in big trouble. Tua never rushed for over 200 yards in college and has a terrible injury history. And he wasn't especially accurate on deep balls last year, despite what the scouting community would have you think. And he's joining one of the worst rosters in the whole league, and probably has worse receiving weapons than he did last year. So I think that all wraps up in a package that is going to be very easy for NFL defenses to defend. I fully expect him to be a bust. And if you think I'm being too harsh, only about 1 in 5 first-round quarterbacks have sustained multiple top 10 seasons in DVOA over the last 20 years. Most guys disappoint. And I don't see Tua being special enough to be an exception. And Jordan Love is also in big trouble. His passing stats in college were so bad. And on top of that, he isn't particularly mobile. He won't have to start right away, which is good because there is no indication that he is an NFL caliber quarterback right now outside a small handful of impressive throws. He's been compared to Mahomes in terms of arm talent, and while he does have a lot of arm talent, this formula gave Mahomes the 8th best grade of the 61 players I put into it, and Love has one of the lowest grades of any first-round pick. He's directly in between Mason Rudolph and Josh Rosen, so they're not the same caliber prospects, and my hopes for Love aren't high. Jake Fromm is the other quarterback that qualified for this chart. He actually had a higher score than Love did, and also has a higher score than Josh Allen. And if he gets the opportunity in Buffalo, I don't think it's out of the question that he outplays Allen. Although he fails at the mobility portion of this formula, he is much more refined as a passer than Allen is or ever was, and eventually that may prove to be the more valuable skill in the long run. Because mobility can only get you so far. It's important to note that this formula is for projecting success very early in players' careers. Tebow and RG3 graded incredibly high in this formula, and although they had great, very memorable rookie seasons and made the playoffs very early in their careers, injury hampered Griffin, and not being a very good passer caught up to Tebow after his playoff loss. Young quarterbacks at the end of the day are pretty easy to predict. Most are going to have pretty severe growing pains and look bad, just the way it is. But by looking at the exceptions, it's clear to see a pattern. And by trying to quantify those patterns, it's clear to me that Jalen Hurts is the most set up for success right away. Whereas guys like Tua and Love, they have an uphill battle. It's worth noting that I don't know when it will be safe to play football again, and it may not be for a long time. And I don't know how that will impact young careers. But for now, I'm pretending like things are going to be somewhat normal. But if this all turns out to be wrong and the formula turns out to be wrong, it's not a problem with me. Just blame it on COVID. That is all.